Morning children, welcome to the online classes once again. So we are going to discuss about the sources of history. Already in the previous classes we have discussed what are the sources and how sources are very important to write history and how history is being written on the basis of sources. Now let us discuss about the different classification of the sources. The sources of history are classified into three categories. They are literary sources, oral sources, and archaeological sources. The literary sources, as I mentioned, they are in the form of writing. They are available in different Indian languages. Okay, they are in Kannada, they are in Tamil, they are in Marathi, they are in Gujarati, almost all the Indian languages. Okay, we have numerous written records in the form of books, and the literary sources are further divided into native literary sources and foreign literary sources. Native literary sources are those which are recorded or which are written by indigenous persons or the people. They are written in different Indian languages by our own people, and some of the important native literary sources are Kautilya's Arthashastra, Halaraja's Gatasaptasati, Vishakadatta's Mudra Rakshasa, Kallana's Rajatarangini, Vanabhatta's Arshacharita, Chand Bardai's Prithviraj Raso, and Kaviraja Marga by Amoghavashan Drupatunga. So like that, numerous written native literary sources are there. So what is the significance of these native literary sources? And these native literary sources are revealing the history of various dynasties or kingdoms which have been established and ruled over a certain period, and their the contributions to the cultural life of our country, and even during the time of each and every dynastic rule, how was the social life of the people and political development of that period and economic activities of man, everything are revealed through these native literary sources. For example, Kautilya's Arthashastra. So Kautilya, as you know, he was the Prime Minister of Chandragupta Maurya, and he was in the court of Chandragupta Maurya, the first Indian emperor, and he observed the administrative system of Chandragupta Maurya and also how the people were living in the capital city and how the capital city Pataliputra was built. So regarding this, he has written the book Arthashastra, and the name suggests Arthashastra is a science and economics, but it is completely it's a political science, because it is focusing on administrative principles that a king should adopt to have a sound administration. So like this, the history of Mauryans can be traced with the help of Kautilya's Arthashastra. And the second important native literary source is Halaraja's Gatasaptasati. So you might be heard Halaraja, he was the 17th ruler of Shakavahana's, one of the famous South Indian dynasty, Shakavahana's. So in the court of Shakavahana's, there were so many the scholars, they produced a variety of the books. So and even Halaraja, he was a great poet, and also he was a great ruler of Shakavahana family. He wrote the book Gatasaptasati. So Gatasaptasati is nothing but 700 erotic poems he composed in the Sanskrit language, and this book is mainly focusing on the history of the Shakavahanas. So where did the Shakavahanas come from and how did they establish their own independent dynasty? What was their territorial extent? how was the life of the people, all these things can be traced with the help of Halaraja's Katha Saptasati. Similarly, Kallana's Raja Tarangini. So Kallana was a court poet of the Rajput dynasty. He wrote a book called Raja Tarangini. So this book is all about the history of Jammu and Kashmir. So the history of Jammu and Kashmir can be traced with the help of Kallana's Raja Tarangini. Similarly, in the court of Harshavardhana, the most famous Vardhana ruler, and also very important North Indian ruler Harshavardhana. So in his court there was a poet called Banabhatta. So Banabhatta wrote the biography of Harshavardhana. It is called as Harshacharita. Even this book is also very important native literary sources because it is shedding the light on the Harshavardhana's administrative system and how Harshavardhana was a benevolent ruler, and also he is glorifying Nalanda University, one of the most famous educational centers of those days, and how education was important in this Nalanda University. So all this can be traced with the help of Banabhatta's Harshacharita. And also, one more very important I can mention, that is Chand Bardai's Prithviraj Raso. So Chand Bardai was the court poet of Prithviraj Chauhan, one of the famous Rajput ruler. So he wrote a book called Prithviraj Raso, and this book Prithviraj Raso is dealing with the military expeditions of Prithviraj Chauhan and also the heroic deeds undertaken by Prithviraj Chauhan, and also we can trace the history of Rajputs with the help of this. So there are numerous I mentioned, very few are being mentioned. These are all important native literary sources. Based on these sources, the history of India is written. Similarly, we have foreign literary sources. So what are foreign literary sources? Are the foreign accounts. So in course of time, many foreigners, they came to India. They settled in different places and they were patronized by various rulers. And during their stay in India, so they got all their experiences in the form of books, and these books are called as foreign accounts. And these foreign accounts are also providing valuable information to write Indian history. Some of the important foreign literary sources I can mention are, so Megasthenes Indica. Who was Megasthenes? As you know, Megasthenes was a Greek ambassador. He was sent by Seleucus Nicator, a Greek ruler, to the court of Chandragupta Maurya. And he stayed here in the capital city of Mauryans, and he has observed the living conditions of people and wrote the book about his experiences called Indica. So this Indica is providing very good information about the history of Mauryans. Similarly, Faiyang. Who was Faiyang? He was a Chinese traveler, and he came to India during the time of Guptas, and he visited Pataliputra, the capital city of Guptas, and he was there. He was patronized by Chandragupta II or Vikramaditya. And during his stay, he observed the administrative system of Chandragupta Maurya, and also, as you know, the Gupta's age is called as the Golden Age. How the Gupta's period referred as the Golden Age? Regarding that, all the information is furnished in this book called Go Koki, written by Faiyang. Means we were, to understand the history of the Guptas, this book is also very important. Faiyang's Go Koki. Next comes, one more very important foreign traveler, Yuan Song. Yuan Song was a Chinese traveler. He came to India. You know why did he come to India? So he came to India in order to study Buddhism in its birthplace. You know, okay, Buddhism was taken root in India. He wanted to study Buddhism, so that he joined the popular university, Nalanda University, and he studied Buddhism in Nalanda University. Afterwards, so he worked as a tutor in the Nalanda University. After gaining knowledge about Buddhism, he visited the capital city of Harshavardhana, and he stayed in Kannauj. And he has published his experiences about the Harshavardhana. The history of Vardhanas or Harshavardhana can be traced with the help of Yuan Sang CUK. He also visited Badami, the capital city of Pulakeshin II, Chalukyan Emperor in South India. From there he moved to Kanchi, the capital city of Pallavas. By the time Narasimhavarma, a Pallava ruler, patronized him, and he stayed some time in Kanchi. From there he moved to Sri Lanka, and from Sri Lanka he travelled to China. But his experiences, which are left in the form of book called CUK, is a valuable foreign record to write the history of India. Similarly, Ptolemy's geography and Babur's Taz-i-Babri, some can be mentioned. These are all very important foreign literary sources. Then comes the oral sources. I told you, these oral sources are of folk songs, folk stories, lessons, and ballads. Yes. So these oral sources, they are not in a written form. They are just passed from one generation to generation, from mouth to mouth orally. But even though they are not in the written form, these oral resources are also very important to write history. Otherwise, so we are giving something very important, that is excluded from the history of India. So that is nowadays the historians are feeling, so these oral sources are also very important. They should be considered while writing the history of any countries. So let us focus on which are the important oral sources available to write history of India. The folk songs. So you might have heard of the Janapada Geetegalu, the folk songs about a particular person or a particular place or anything which is very important in our life. So many songs are composed by the folk. They are not highly educated people, but they are very excellent in composing songs in their own way. About any person or anything. So they are also very important or integral part of our history. Similarly, the folk stories. The stories you might have heard Ajji Kathegalu. So these folk stories are told by one generation to another generation, orally passed for several years. So they are also very important. So they are available in plenty, in more numbers. And third important oral resource is legends. Legends are also called as Sthala Puranas. So these legends are providing valuable information about a particular place. For example, Shravanabelagola. How this place, do you know where is Shravanabelagola? It is in Hassan district. How this place came to be very popular, Shravanabelagola. It is one of the Jaina center, Shravanabelagola, and there is a history about that. For example, the first Jaina Tirthankara Rishabhanatha had two sons, Bharata and Bahubali. And there was a fight between Bharata and Bahubali to gain power. And this the story continues like this. Similarly, our own city Bangalore, there is a legend. And earlier it was called Benda Kaduru, So, okay, based on that, our city came to be called as Bengaluru. Okay, and there are lessons about Sringeri, Pattadakallu, Mysore. Why Mysore is named as Mysuru? So there are many stories or the legends. So they are also very important to write history of our country. So like that, the oral sources are playing very important role. The last category of the sources are the archaeological sources. So what are archaeological sources? So archaeological sources are in the form of materials which are being used by man and left behind. For example, earthen parts and some ornaments used by them, and even the coins and inscriptions produced, and he built many monuments in the form of forts, in the form of temples and other religious buildings. These are all called the archaeological sources. And these archaeological sources are buried, and some of them are buried under the earth. At the time of excavation, all these are brought to our notice, and these are providing very important information about the history of India. So with this, I am concluding this second class about the sources of history, and the remaining I will continue in the next class. Thank you. So based on the topic of what we have discussed in the first class and the second class, so here is an assignment. You have to make answers. So the questions are like this: what do you mean by sources? How is history being written by the historians? Differentiate native and foreign literary sources, and list out any 4 important native literary sources, and also list out any 4 foreign literary sources. Thank you.